Well, when I said on Friday when Adam Guthrie committed to Clemson that recruiting is very much a momentum-based game, and that sometimes when one domino falls, more tend to follow after. Um, I didn't think it was going to be this fast, but Clemson has had three major dominoes drop within the last 12 hours in Naim Burrows, Connor Salmon, and Grant Wise. Three massive, massive gets for Clemson. Um, I can't understate it enough. It is a huge, huge recruiting coup, upset, whatever you want to say. Um, these are three kids coming into the weekend that of course, we had our eyes on, but weren't entirely sure that we're going to leave with commitments. Even in Naeem's case, he was getting a lot of industry predictions to Florida, but nevertheless, Clemson is they continue to work their magic when they get these kids on campus. Um, but thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna break these guys down real quick and kind of talk about what Clemson is getting in each of these prospects. Um, TPC, when you watch, we'll start with Naeem. When you watch Naeem, like, kind of, what is the thing that kind of jumps out to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, for him, I was watching his tape a little bit earlier, and this is just a huge get, for the Tigers. He's a kind of that slot receiver guy with true track speed, plenty of ability to make big plays when he gets the ball out in space. A little bit undersized, but he's got good hand size and all that kind of stuff. Just when you're watching his tape, we got the highlights running right there. A dynamic route runner. He creates separation, which is something that Clemson has lacked in the recent past, but was rectified last season. And adding a guy like this onto the team that had an amazing junior campaign. I think he had 35 catches for 885 yards and 15 touchdown receptions last season. So that produces in a big way. So it's a huge get for the Tigers, and it continues our streak of 2 years in a row, kind of landing these big time game breaking wide receivers like we have on the roster right now.
Absolutely, and Naeem was a kid that was getting industry predictions to Florida earlier in the week. Clemson held the momentum at different points in his recruitment, but towards the end of this past season, Florida seemed to have gotten in the driver's seat with Clemson not too far behind. But coming into the weekend, there wasn't an expectation that he was going to leave with a commitment. But Clemson worked their magic, and he decided to pull the trigger last night. Um, he's from the Bowl School in Jacksonville, Florida, as you mentioned. He's 5'11", 175 pounds, so the frame doesn't jump off the page to you. But when you watch the tape, the speed, the true track speed, the twitchiness, he's got really soft hands. I think he's not one of those stereotypical, he's a fast receiver, but, he's got bricks for hands. Like, no, he's got really soft hands, good ball skills. This is the level of wide receiver that Clemson has recruited in the past, and what the best programs in the country are recruiting. I mean, I mentioned Florida was hard after him, but you also beat out the likes of Texas and USC. He has offers from Notre Dame and Ohio State. This is a massive, massive win for Clemson, and one that I think is going to be a great addition to the wide receiver room, because you can never have too many kids that can just flat out run. And I think he's very much a culture fit too. And, I think that's extremely important. Comes from a great family. Um, I can't speak too highly of what this means. And, I want to give a shout out to Tyler Grisham, because I think he did a great job with this
Yeah.
recruitment. It was very, very important that, Clemson, continues to build that wide receiver room, as you've seen the evolution of it over the last few cycles. So, um, huge win for Clemson. Really, really
Yeah.
great player that I think is going to pay dividends in the future, and continue to bring wide receiver you back.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna be a big game player, right? He's gonna produce in a big way for the Tigers. You think back to this past year's 2025 Under Armour American game where he led in in receiving yards as an underclassman, had 3 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown in that game. So producing against elite level talent is what he does as well. And that's what he did in that game. So that shows you that the transition is there for him, right? He's going to translate to this Clemson offense really well under a guy like Garrett Riley, who loves guys like this, right? Who loves guys that can get out and really challenge those linebackers and those safeties in a big way. It's going to be a big get for the Tigers. And we talked about it coming into this weekend, and how many big time recruits we had on campus, and how this was one of the biggest elite retreats that we've had in recent history. And when you rattle off 4 big recruits or 4 big commitments, like Clemson has in the past 3 days, it's a big thing, man. So started the weekend off before it really started, with Adam Guthrie, and then Naim Burrows, commit shortly after that. So big weekend so far for Clemson, but we got a couple more guys to talk about here.
And of course, Naim Burrows wasn't the only one to announce his commitment on Saturday night, as top 247 wide receiver Connor Salmin from Potomac, Maryland, also announced his commitment to Clemson. Very much in a similar mold in a lot of ways, but a bigger frame with the elite track speed. Connor Salman is a fantastic prospect, a kid that was sought after also by many top programs in the country, most notably Notre Dame and Penn State. But like I said with Naim, you're getting elite track speed, and honestly, with the track numbers, Connor, he runs a 10.44 in the 100 meters, so even like a 0.2 of a second difference. Which, if you guys if any of you guys ran track in high school or at any level, that's a very, very big deal and a very big difference. But these are still two of the fastest wide receivers in the nation. But yeah, Potomac, Maryland, by way of Percival, Virginia, I might add. He is a kid that I think is going to line up. You could probably line him up anywhere, with his frame, 6'1", 190. But you really stress defenses at any level of the field. I mean, he's got the twitchiness, he's got the suddenness in his routes that you want to see. I think this is another fantastic addition for Tyler Grisham, and I think he's continues to do a great job with the evolution of this wide receiver room. And we've kind of talked about what Clemson had needed to do over the last few years as far as rebuilding this group into what we were used to in the mid 2010s, well, really even before that, when Clemson was stamping itself as wide receiver U. Right. But TPC, what do you see from Connor, and what excites you the most about him?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Connor, and similar to Naeem, he's a guy that has that track speed, right? Runs a 10.44 in the 100 meter, so a guy that can just absolutely blow by defenders. So that's the first thing that kind of jumps out to you for this guy. But that's not really the only thing that he has. He's a little bit of a bigger size guy when you compare him to Naeem. 6'1", 190 pounds. One of the big things that jumped off to the tape with me about Connor was his ability to catch the ball in traffic, right? Contested catches were something that you saw a common thread when you were watching his tape, his junior season tape, right? So, he had a big junior campaign. He has the ability to do a lot of different things within the offense, and catching in traffic is one of those things that he possesses that really jumped off the screen for me when I was watching him. So, he finishes out his junior campaign with 53 receptions for 1,107 yards and 16 touchdowns. So a guy that produces at a really high level for the offense that he plays in as well. He's going to fit nicely, again, in a Garrett Riley system. Can't wait to get this guy on campus. I mean, these two guys that Clemson just added to the wide receiver room, you're getting a lot closer to what you mentioned, that wide receiver that we knew Clemson to be in the middle of the 20 teens, right? When Clemson was rattling off 6 straight college football playoff appearances, Final Four appearances, and then the 2 national titles, and then the 2 other national titles that they went to and ultimately lost. But I mean, look, these 2 guys are going to be amazing for this Clemson offense. I cannot wait to get these guys on campus. This has been a massive weekend for Clemson because of how last recruiting cycle went, and this one starting off in a big way. You can feel the tide turning as far as recruiting goes for Clemson. You can feel that they have figured some things out in this new world of college football that we currently operate in the with the NIL and all that stuff. It's hard to land these big guys, but Clemson has obviously figured out a way to navigate these waters. And Garrett Riley and Dabo Swinney and the rest of that staff is coming through in a big way early in this 2026 class.
And the momentum, didn't just stop last night. It carried into this morning as interior offensive lineman Grant Wise, blue chip prospect out of Pace Academy, also announced his commitment to Clemson. He even had a really cool video that he tweeted out of his commitment. We didn't even do a graphic or anything like that, just a video of him in Dabo Swinney's office telling him he was committing, and Dabo's excitement was really, really cool. But Matt Luke continues to do wonders on the recruiting trail, and Grant Wise is not the last guy we'll talk about. But what I really, really love about Grant is the guy he's a mauler. He is as physical gets. I think ultimately he's going to play. You can see in his high school tape he's played along the offensive line. I think ultimately he'll be a center. I think his body type fits that way, but I think he has the versatility. He can play guard at either guard spot as well. But that's one of the things that I think is what Clemson has emphasized in recent years, and especially with Matt Luke, is getting guys that can flat out block downfield and get upfield, but also are extremely physical. And so the size profile matches, and you can tell by the offer list. It is pretty impressive. I mean, you got the Alabamas and the Ohio States and the Texas, the Georgias of the world. He has offers from basically anybody you can think of. And he's been a fast riser. I mean, he's already a 4-star on On3 and Rivals. And I think he's a 3-star on 24/7 Sports, but I don't think that's going to last very long. He is a fantastic interior offensive line prospect. TPC, what do you kind of see from him? Because I really think this is one of the better interior offensive linemen in the country, just looking at what he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw at the front of his highlight tape, 140 plus pancakes, no sacks, no hurries given up in his junior campaign. And really, when you look at a guy like this, it just shows the change that has come since we added Matt Luke as offensive line coach. He is bringing in some really big time talent when it comes to the offensive line. And looking at Grant Wise and his tape, 6'3", 310-pound guy out of Milton, Florida. He looks athletic, right? You see him pulling a lot in his tape. He looks athletic, pulling, blocking out in space. And you mentioned that kind of nasty streak that he has, that finishing the block, playing to the whistle type of offensive lineman. He enjoys taking guys for a ride downfield, right, and planting them into the turf, which is something that you always like to see out of your offensive linemen, especially your interior offensive linemen guys. Those guys are, in the trenches, snap in and snap out, and they're asked to get to the second level and disrupt what the defense is trying to do on the second level. And he's a guy that's proven that he can do that, and that he has the willingness to go out there in space and get on a linebacker, hat on a hat, and really drive them into the turf. So that's really what kind of jumps out to me. You mentioned the tape. Matt Luke was really excited. Dabo Swinney was really excited about landing this guy, and we got a good one in Grant Wise. He's going to be, I think, a really productive big time offensive lineman for the Tigers.
100%. And you're just seeing the philosophy change, as you mentioned, with Clemson as far as recruiting offensive line. In years past, you saw one of the things that Clemson lacked the most when it came to recruiting was arguably the thing they lacked the most when it came to recruiting was that offensive line. They had some good teams in the past. They had a couple of good offensive lines, but you never really had the true, like, you never really had you haven't had a first round pick since like the 60s at offensive line. And you just never truly had the high end NFL talent that a lot of the schools that are winning championships you're seeing, like the Ohio States, the Georgias. They recruited well along the lines of scrimmage. And it never made sense to me that Clemson was so good at recruiting defensive line, but they didn't follow that up with the same type of mentality on the offensive line. And I go back to that 2021 Georgia opener when Clemson gave up eight, 9 sacks and lost 10-3.
Yeah.
Like, that offense in general wasn't very good, but when you saw Georgia's defensive line matched up against Clemson's, it looked like they were playing two different sports. That was the most overmatched, position. That was the most overmatched I've seen an offensive line look in quite some time. And you've seen the slow. It started kind of under Thomas Austin a little bit. You saw them try to get more of those bigger types, but he didn't have the recruiting acumen that you needed to see in order to actually close on some of those kids. And now you're seeing, with the addition of Matt Luke, who's seen what high-level elite offensive line talent looks like, he's going after and getting and changing the body type and the look that Clemson has on the offensive line. They're going to look and resemble the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texases that have recruited extremely well at the offensive line position. And so Grant Wise is the next in line there. 2025 is, looking to be one of the best years for Clemson as far as the offensive line is concerned. 4 or 5 starters coming back. You have some guys that I think will, be drafted. I can't speak highly, too highly of what Matt Luke has done in terms of the philosophy change at that position. And so I think Clemson fans should be really excited moving forward. And there are more guys that we have on our radar that could be pulling the trigger here pretty soon. I can't speak too highly of Matt Luke, man. It's been a revelation in terms of what it's meant for Clemson recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. It started with Adam Guthrie and now Grant Wise, but the Matt Luke and the rest of this Clemson staff has not done, especially on the offensive line position group. And I can't wait to see who else we add. You mentioned, his ability to just bring in different type recruits, right? Clemson for a long time has had a serviceable offensive line, but not that elite level offensive line that you see a lot with a lot of the top programs in the country, even when they were doing their playoff run. But you can see the momentum shifting. You can see the tide shifting within the room and the philosophy shift now that we've added a coach to the caliber of Matt Luke. So exciting things to come for the Tigers.
Absolutely. And of course, we will continue to monitor how these guys, how these recruiting developments continue to play out. We'll have more videos. And of course, check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. On the All In Show, where we also talk recruiting, among other things, spring practice, anything Clemson football. So if you're new to the channel and are discovering us from this video, feel free to check us out, give us a like and subscribe. But until then, I'm Jordan Bowman. He's Tiger Paw Craven. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.